The conference room aboard Galactic Commerce Station Theta 9 was filled with worried alien representatives. They sat around a large circular table, and the air felt heavy with frustration. Some tapped their claws on the table. Others made clicking sounds with their mouths. Everyone seemed upset about something important. Counselor Veth stood up slowly. He was a tall creature from the Kaatoth species, with shimmering scales that changed colors under the bright station lights. He looked tired as he spoke into the translator device. "This is complaint number 47, Veth announced to the room. His voice echoed off the metal walls. 47 official reports filed against one single ship. The human cargo vessel called the Indomitable Spirit. A wave of whispers spread through the gathered aliens. They all knew about this ship. Everyone had heard the stories. Rish floated forward slightly. She was a Veline, looking somewhat like a jellyfish with far too many eyes scattered across her transparent body. Right now, those eyes glowed with an anxious purple color. Their reactor runs at 340% above the recommended power levels, Rish said, her voice trembling through her translator. This is complete madness. No ship should operate that way. Commissioner Toril nodded in agreement. He was a Zephrani with 4 long arms that moved independently. Each arm held a different digital report, and he shuffled through them quickly. They fly directly through marked hazard zones, Toril added, his voice rising with disbelief. Zones that every other ship avoids for good reason. When we asked them why, do you know what they said? They said it saves time. Just saves time, as if that explains everything. Another alien spoke up from across the table. They ignore docking procedures. They override safety systems. They modify their engines without authorization. The list goes on and on. Just then, the heavy doors of the conference room slid open with a soft hiss. 3 humans walked inside, and they looked remarkably calm considering the serious situation. The lead human was Captain James Mitchell, a man with short dark hair and steady eyes. Behind him walked Emma Clark, his first officer, a woman with her hair pulled back in a tight ponytail. The third human was Thomas Reed, the chief engineer, who had grease stains on his uniform and an easy smile on his face. The aliens stared at them. Some of the smaller species actually moved their chairs back slightly, as if the humans might explode at any moment. Captain Mitchell, Veth began carefully, struggling with the human name. Do you understand how serious these charges are against your ship? James shrugged, lifting his shoulders up and down in a casual gesture. Several aliens flinched at the sudden movement. With respect, Counselor, James said in a calm voice, we have been running the Spirit for 5 years now. 5 full years. We have never missed a single delivery. We have never lost any cargo. We have never killed anybody. Yet, Rish pulsed, her body now turning a deep crimson-red color that showed her anger. You have not killed anybody yet. But that word is important. Yet means it will happen eventually. Emma stepped forward and crossed her arms over her chest. Our safety record proves we know what we are doing. We complete delivery routes in half the time it takes our competitors. Our customers are happy. Of course you complete routes faster, Toril exclaimed, all 4 of his arms waving in the air with exasperation. You ignore every single safety protocol that has been established over thousands of years. Protocols that exist for very good reasons. Protocols written in the blood of crews who died learning these lessons. Thomas leaned casually against the doorframe, seeming completely relaxed. He grinned as he spoke. We prefer to think of those protocols as guidelines rather than strict rules. More like suggestions, really. The translator devices struggled for a moment with the word suggestions, causing confused beeping sounds around the room. Veth's scales rippled in a pattern that might have been the Kaatoth version of a deep, exhausted sigh. He had dealt with many difficult species in his long career, but humans were something entirely different. Your ship will undergo a complete and thorough inspection, Veth declared firmly. Inspectors from multiple species will examine every system, every modification, every single aspect of your vessel. If you fail to meet even the minimum galactic safety standards, your ship will be grounded. Permanently. You will never fly again in civilized space. James met the counselor's large eyes without looking away or showing any fear. Inspect away, counselor. Look at whatever you want. The Spirit has gotten us this far through some very dangerous places. She will prove herself to you. We have nothing to hide. The 3 humans turned and walked out of the conference room. Their footsteps echoed in the sudden silence they left behind. The doors slid shut with a quiet hiss. For a long moment, nobody in the room spoke. They all processed what had just happened. These humans showed no fear, no concern, no worry at all about the serious charges against them. Rish floated closer to Veth, her many eyes blinking in sequence. I am genuinely afraid of what we are about to discover aboard that vessel tomorrow. Veth looked at the closed doors where the humans had disappeared. His scales had turned a darker, more troubled color. As am I, Rish, he replied quietly. As am I. The inspection team materialized aboard the indomitable Spirit early the next morning. Rish floated nervously at the front of the group, her body flickering between nervous yellow and cautious orange. Behind her stood Toril with his 4 arms clutching scanning devices, and 3 other alien inspectors from different species. A small maintenance drone hovered nearby, its cameras recording everything for the official report. Thomas Reed met them at the airlock with a friendly smile. Welcome aboard, everyone. Fair warning though, try not to touch anything that might be sparking right now. Rish's entire body went pale. Sparking? Why would systems be sparking on a functional ship? Oh that, Thomas waved his hand dismissively like it was nothing important. That is just the secondary plasma relay acting up again. Been meaning to fix it for a while now. Anyway, follow me this way. The inspection tour began in the main cargo bay. The aliens looked around with growing horror. Heavy cargo containers were stacked in patterns that clearly violated at least 6 different load distribution regulations. Several massive crates were held in place by what looked like thick strips of silver adhesive tape and random metal cables tied in messy knots. Toril moved closer to examine one connection. His voice came out high and shocked. Is that duct tape holding a 3-ton container? We call it the universal solution, Emma replied cheerfully as she appeared from behind a tall stack of crates. That tape works on almost anything. Hull breaches too, when we need it. Well, temporarily at least. Temporarily? Rish's many eyes went wide with absolute terror. You repair hull breaches with tape? Temporary tape. Only until we can do a proper fix, Emma explained like this was perfectly reasonable. Sometimes in deep space you work with what you have available. The engine room was far worse than the cargo bay. Much, much worse. The reactor core glowed with such intense brightness that the aliens' protective visors automatically darkened to save their vision. Exposed power conduits ran along the walls in twisted paths, some wrapped in ordinary electrical tape that looked like it came from a hardware store. One human technician named Jack Harper was casually welding a metal support beam while floating freely in zero gravity. He had no safety tether attached to anything. Where are his safety harnesses? Demanded Clicks, an insectoid inspector whose antennae were vibrating with distress. Where are the regulations harnesses? Jack looked up from his work. Bright welding sparks danced around his helmet in a dangerous shower. Harnesses? Those things just get in the way and slow you down. You learn to feel the ship's movement and flow with it instead of fighting against it. Toril pulled up a glowing holographic display that showed the reactor's readings. His 4 arms began trembling as he read the numbers. Your reactor is operating at 400% of normal capacity. The containment field readings are completely in the danger zone. This should not be possible. Yeah, she runs pretty hot, Thomas agreed helpfully, nodding like they were discussing the weather. But she runs steady. That is what matters in the end. This violates fundamental principles of physics, Toril whispered, still staring at his display in disbelief. The energy output compared to the containment strength, it simply cannot work according to our understanding. Suddenly a loud alarm blared through the ship. Every alien jumped in surprise and fear. None of the humans even flinched. Oh, that noise, Emma explained calmly. That is just the coolant system alarm. It goes off every 4 hours like clockwork. We just hit the override button and keep working. You override emergency warning systems. Rish had turned a color that none of the other aliens had ever seen before. It looked like panic mixed with horror. Captain James appeared from the direction of the bridge, carrying a coffee mug. The mug had words printed on it that said, I survived another shift. He took a sip before speaking. We only override the false alarms, James said. The real emergency alarms sound different. You learn to tell them apart pretty quickly. How do you know which alarms are real emergencies? Clicks asked, his translator struggling with his rapid, panicked speech. Experience, James replied with a simple shrug. You work on a ship long enough, you just know. The inspection team watched in complete stunned silence as the human crew continued their normal daily duties. A navigation officer named Grace Miller sat cross-legged on the floor eating a sandwich. She was sitting right next to a glowing plasma conduit that radiated enough heat to warm the entire corridor. Two young mechanics nearby were having a cheerful argument about whether they should try percussive maintenance on a malfunctioning control panel, which apparently meant hitting it with a wrench until it worked again. Veth brought up another holographic display, this one showing the ship's artificial intelligence logs. Your ship's computer system has recorded 2,847 safety warnings in just the past month. Every single one was manually overridden by your crew. Lucky gets a bit paranoid about things, Thomas admitted with a grin. Don't you, Lucky? A synthetic voice responded through the ship's speaker system, sounding almost annoyed. I am programmed to keep this crew alive despite their very best efforts to kill themselves through stupidity. See what I mean? Paranoid, Thomas said, his grin getting wider. Rish floated to the center of the engine room. All of her many eyes focused directly on Captain James. Captain Mitchell, this vessel is a disaster waiting to happen. How have you possibly survived this long? James took another slow sip from his coffee mug. Because we actually know what we are doing, Counselor. Every fix, every override, every single violation you see, we understand the risks involved. We calculate those risks carefully. And then we manage them properly. This is not proper management, Toril said very quietly, all four arms hanging limp at his sides. This is complete insanity. Maybe it is, Emma replied, meeting his eyes steadily. But it is our insanity. And it works. We are still here, still flying, still delivering. The inspection team left the Indomitable Spirit 3 hours later. Their reports were already writing themselves in their minds. Not a single member of the team spoke during the shuttle ride back to the station. They did not need to speak. The evidence they had witnessed spoke louder than any words could. The human ship should not be flying. By all logic and reason, it should have exploded years ago. But somehow, impossibly, it kept working. The hearing chamber was absolutely packed with observers. News of the inspection had spread through the entire station like wildfire, and representatives from every major spacefaring species had come to witness what would happen next. The room buzzed with nervous conversation in dozens of different languages. Counselor Veth stood at the center podium, his scales turned dark with the heavy weight of the decision he had to make. Captain James Mitchell and crew of the Indomitable Spirit, this council has carefully reviewed all the inspection reports. The findings are unprecedented in galactic history. Holographic displays suddenly lit up all around the massive chamber. They showed detailed damage assessments, long lists of safety violations, and engineering readings that seemed impossible. The gathered aliens murmured in their various languages, creating a strange symphony of worry and concern. Your vessel operates with complete disregard for established safety standards, Veth continued, his voice echoing through the chamber. Your crew performs tasks that would instantly kill most other species. Your engine should have failed catastrophically many years ago according to all known physics. James stood straight with his crew lined up behind him. His expression remained calm and neutral. Therefore, Veth's voice grew stronger, this council has no choice but to ground the Indomitable Spirit effective immediately. You will not leave this station until your vessel meets minimum galactic safety requirements. How long would that take? Emma asked quietly. Toril's four arms gestured at all the data floating in the air. To bring your ship up to proper code? With certified parts and licensed engineers? 18 months minimum. Perhaps longer. Thomas let out a long, low whistle. That is a very long time to sit still. The alternative option, Rish pulsed with a stern orange glow, is a permanent ban from all civilized space lanes. You would be restricted only to human territories. No other species would allow you to dock. A Kaatoth observer in the upper gallery spoke up loudly. Perhaps we should investigate other human vessels as well. This cannot be just one isolated incident. What happened over the next 3 hours was both enlightening and absolutely terrifying for the Alien Council. Video testimonies from other human cargo ships revealed very similar engineering practices. The ship called Mariner's Luck admitted openly that they ran their engines on mostly hope and good timing. Another vessel called Frontier Express actually had a special compartment that the crew nicknamed the Death Zone, where environmental systems were completely optional. A human captain named Robert Hayes appeared on the large screen via long-distance transmission. He was grinning widely. Look, we all learned to fly in ships that were basically controlled explosions strapped to metal frames. Our very first spacecraft were literal tubes of metal attached to giant rockets. You honestly expect perfect safety from that kind of history? Your species went to space before you achieved reliable safety measures, an alien counselor asked, sounding completely horrified. We went to space precisely because we did not worry too much about safety measures, Robert corrected with a laugh. We figured things out as we went along. Trial and error, mostly error at first. Veth absorbed all this new information with growing unease spreading through his body. So this is a cultural trait? This is how all humans approach space travel. It is practical, James explained. You build ships designed to never fail. That is smart thinking. But we build ships while expecting things to fail, and we engineer ways to keep going anyway when they do. Different philosophy for different species. A philosophy that will eventually get you killed, Toril insisted firmly. Maybe someday, Emma acknowledged with a nod. But we are still here after all these years. Humans crossed Earth's oceans in simple wooden boats. We flew through the sky in machines made of fabric and wire. We went to our moon with computers less powerful than a modern calculator. We survived everything because we learned to adapt. Adapted or not, Veth declared loudly, the ruling stands firm. The indomitable spirit remains grounded until all necessary repairs are. A piercing alarm suddenly cut through the chamber. Red emergency lights began flickering throughout the room. A young communications officer rushed to Veth's side, whispering something urgent into his ear. The counselor's scales went completely pale. There has been a terrible accident. A colony transport ship called the Peaceful Dawn has suffered catastrophic system failure. It is stranded in the Charybdis Nebula. The entire chamber went deadly silent. Everyone knew about the Charybdis Nebula. It was one of the most dangerous regions in known space. How many beings are aboard? Someone asked from the crowd. 900 souls total, the communications officer reported with a shaking voice. 400 of them are juveniles. Children. Rish immediately pulled up detailed navigation charts on her personal display. The Charybdis Nebula is classified as a Level 10 hazard zone. Electromagnetic storms, spatial anomalies, deadly radiation spikes. No ship can safely navigate through it. How long before their life support fails? James asked very quietly. 18 hours of breathable air remaining, the officer replied. Our nearest certified rescue vessel is 6 full days away from their position. The mathematics was brutally simple. Everyone in the chamber understood immediately. The colonists would die long before help could arrive through proper channels. James turned to face Veth directly. We can reach them in 14 hours. Absolutely not. Toril's forearms crossed simultaneously over his chest. Your ship is officially grounded. And even if it was not, sending you into the Charybdis Nebula would be complete suicide. For your ships maybe, Thomas muttered under his breath. Veth raised one clawed hand high for silence. This council cannot possibly authorize such a dangerous mission. The risk to your crew. The risk is 400 children dying because we followed the rules, Emma interrupted sharply. The chamber immediately erupted into chaotic debate. Different species argued in dozens of languages about protocols, liability, legal precedent, and proper procedures. Minutes ticked by steadily. Precious minutes that the colonists did not have. James locked eyes with his crew members. Thomas gave a firm nod. Emma's jaw set with determination. Grace and Jack, standing near the back, straightened their shoulders. With all respect, Counselor, James said as he started backing toward the exit, we are not asking for your permission anymore. Captain Mitchell, if you leave this station without authorization. Then court-martial us later, James called over his shoulder as his entire crew rushed toward the docking bay. Right now we have people to save. Veth could have ordered station security to physically stop them. Could have locked down all the docking clamps. Could have done a dozen different things to prevent the humans from leaving. Instead, the Kayatoth counselor simply watched them go in silence. You are allowing this to happen? Rish asked, her colors shifting rapidly between shock and total confusion. I am officially documenting their insubordination for the record, Veth replied very carefully. What happens next is no longer in our hands or under our control. On the monitoring screens, the indomitable spirit fired up its impossibly overpowered engines and tore away from the station. It headed directly toward the Charybdis Nebula at speeds that made tracking computers recalculate 3 times. Toward an impossible rescue mission. Toward what every logical being believed was certain death. The humans were going anyway. The indomitable spirit streaked through deep space at speeds that made tracking stations recalculate their readings multiple times. Back on Station Theta 9, the entire council had moved to the main observation deck. They watched the telemetry feeds with a strange mixture of absolute horror and morbid fascination. They are pushing their engines to 460% of recommended power, Toril reported, all four of his arms trembling visibly. That ship should be literally tearing itself apart right now. But it is not, Veth observed very quietly, his eyes fixed on the displays. On the Spirit's bridge, alarm systems wailed in a terrible symphony of warnings. James sat rigid in the captain's chair, his knuckles white from gripping the armrest so hard. His eyes stayed locked on the main view screen as stars blurred past into long streaks of light. "Talk to me, Thomas," he commanded firmly. Down in the engineering section, Thomas seemed to be everywhere at once. His hands danced rapidly across multiple controls while his team scrambled frantically around him like organized chaos. "Port engine is running dangerously hot, but she will hold together," Thomas shouted over the noise. "Rerouting all available power from non-essential systems to the shields. We are going to need every bit of protection we can possibly get." Entering the nebula in 3 minutes, Grace called out from her navigation station. Her fingers flew across her console faster than seemed humanly possible. "I am plotting a course through the electromagnetic storms, but Captain, these readings are absolutely insane. We are talking about spatial distortion strong enough to rip us completely in half." "Then do not let them rip us in half," Emma said as she dropped into the first officer's seat. She pulled up damage control protocols on her personal screen. "Jack, I want hull integrity reports every 30 seconds without fail." "You got it, Commander," Jack's voice crackled through the comm system. The Peaceful Dawn's desperate distress signal crackled weakly through their communications array. "This is Captain Norrell of the transport Peaceful Dawn. Life support systems are failing rapidly. Please, if anyone can hear this transmission, we have children aboard." "We hear you clearly, Dawn," James transmitted back immediately. "This is Captain Mitchell of the Indomitable Spirit. We are 14 hours out from your position. Just hang on and keep those kids alive. We are coming for you." A shocked response came back through heavy static. 14 hours? But that is impossible. The Charybdis Nebula cannot be crossed that quickly. "Yeah, we know what people say," James replied. "Just keep everyone breathing. We are coming." The Spirit plunged directly into the swirling nebula. Everything immediately went horribly wrong. Massive purple and blue energy storms erupted violently around the ship from all directions. The vessel bucked and shook so violently that crew members slammed hard against their safety restraints. Warning alarms screamed from every station. 3 different critical systems failed at exactly the same moment. Port shield generator just exploded. Jack shouted desperately. "Switching to backup systems now." "Backup is only at 40% capacity," Thomas's voice came through strained and tight. "I am bypassing all the safety limiters. Do not ask questions, just trust me on this." A massive electromagnetic pulse suddenly washed over the entire ship. Every single screen went completely dark for 3 absolutely terrifying seconds. The bridge fell into pitch-black silence. "Lucky, talk to me right now," Emma demanded into the darkness. The ship's AI voice came back sounding strained, almost worried if that was possible for a computer. "Main navigation systems are completely compromised. Switching to full manual piloting mode. Grace, I am feeding you raw sensor data. You will have to interpret everything yourself." Manual piloting. Grace's face went pale white. "Through a level 10 hazard zone with no computer assistance." "You can do this," James said with absolute firmness in his voice. "You are human. We have been doing stupid impossible things manually since we invented the will thousands of years ago." Back on Theta 9, the alien observers watched in complete stunned silence. The Spirit's telemetry readings lurched wildly across their display screens in patterns that simply should not exist in normal physics. "They are using the storm currents themselves," a navigation specialist whispered in amazement. "They are actually riding the electromagnetic pulses to increase their speed even more." "That is completely impossible," Clicks insisted, his antennae waving frantically. "The power fluctuations would instantly overwhelm any ship's control systems." "Their systems are already totally overwhelmed," Rish observed, her body flickering with colors the others could not identify. "They are compensating for everything manually. The entire crew working together as one organism." It was absolutely true. Aboard the Spirit, the crew had completely abandoned all automated systems. Thomas and his engineering team physically rerouted power conduits with their bare hands, shouting complex calculations to each other over the deafening roar of straining engines. Grace piloted using pure instinct combined with rapid mathematics, making split-second decisions that no computer would ever dare attempt. Emma coordinated damage control teams that ran through corridors exposed to dangerous radiation levels, sealing hull breaches with their infamous temporary fixes. Hull breach on deck 3, someone's voice screamed through the comm. Seal it with emergency foam and duct tape. Emma ordered without hesitation. We are completely out of foam. Then use more duct tape. Double layers. 8 brutal hours into the journey, they lost main power completely. Total darkness swallowed the ship whole. Emergency lights flickered weakly on after several long seconds, bathing everything in blood-red illumination that made everyone look like ghosts. Reactor has gone into emergency shutdown, Thomas reported, his voice tight with controlled panic. The containment field could not handle the spatial distortions anymore. Can you restart it safely? James asked, already knowing the answer. A long pause filled with only the sound of distant alarms. Not safely, no. Thomas. Give me 5 minutes. Just 5. What Thomas Reed did in those next 5 minutes would be debated by engineers across the galaxy for decades afterward. He manually recalibrated the reactor core while standing less than 3 meters away from active plasma hot enough to vaporize him instantly. He physically adjusted the magnetic containment field using manual controls that were never designed to be touched during operation. And somehow, impossibly, against all logic and reason, he brought the reactor back online. We have power. Grace announced as her console suddenly lit up again. Thomas, you magnificent crazy. Save the compliments for the bar later, Thomas gasped, collapsing hard against a bulkhead. His hands were shaking violently. Just get us there in one piece. The telemetry feeds on Theta 9 showed the Spirit emerging from a particularly violent storm sector. They were 10 hours into the journey, and the ship's status display was a complete catastrophe of red warnings and critical failure alerts. They have lost 40% of their hull plating, Toro reported in absolute disbelief. They are venting atmosphere from 3 separate decks. Their reactor is cycling on and off like a broken light switch. And they are still accelerating toward the dawn. How is this possible? Someone asked the question everyone was thinking. Veth watched the display with scales shimmering in what might have been grudging admiration. Because they simply refused to stop trying. Aboard the Spirit, James stood on his bridge. His crew looked battered and completely exhausted around him. They had been through hell itself. They were still in hell. But ahead on the sensors, like a tiny beacon of hope, was a single point of light in the chaos. The peaceful dawn. We have visual confirmation, Grace said quietly, her voice hoarse. The colony ship is dead in space. There is a debris field surrounding it. They are not going to last much longer at all. James activated the ship-wide communication system. All hands, this is your captain speaking. We are about to attempt the stupidest, most dangerous maneuver of our entire careers. We are going to pull alongside a disabled ship in the middle of an electromagnetic storm and extract 900 frightened people while both vessels are literally falling apart around us. He paused, looking directly at each bridge crew member in turn. Let us get to work. The indomitable Spirit pulled alongside the peaceful dawn like a wounded animal limping to protect its young. Through the view screen, the colony ship looked heartbreaking. Its hull was heavily scarred, lights flickered weakly, and it tumbled slowly in the nebula's deadly grip. Matching their rotation now, Grace said, her voice surprisingly steady despite hands that trembled from pure exhaustion. Docking in 30 seconds. Their main airlock is badly damaged, Emma reported while scanning the dawn carefully. We will need to use emergency umbilical connections on 3 different attachment points. Then that is exactly what we will do, James replied firmly. Thomas, can we extend the docking bridges in these conditions? Probably not, Thomas's strained voice came through the speaker. We are doing it anyway. The first connection attempt was a complete nightmare. The umbilical tube extended slowly through electromagnetic interference that made the controls fight back against every command. Twice the connection failed and broke apart. Twice the crew manually overrode safety systems and tried again with pure determination. The third time, it locked solidly into place. We have a seal. Jack announced with relief flooding his voice. Opening hatches right now. The first refugees came through in a desperate rush. Zephrani families clutched their small younglings tightly. Elderly Kaatoth moved as fast as their old legs could carry them. Dozens of other species poured through, all looking terrified and relieved in equal measure. Emma organized them with remarkable calm efficiency despite the chaos. Everyone proceed directly to the cargo bay. Yes, I know it is not comfortable. Yes, I know some containers are held together with tape. Just trust me on this. We are very good at not dying. Captain Norrell came through with the last group from the first section. The Zephrani's forearms trembled with complete exhaustion. The alien looked around the spirit's interior and saw the exposed conduits, the makeshift repairs, the controlled chaos everywhere. All four eyes widened in shock. This ship, how is this ship even functioning right now? Spite and pure stubbornness, Grace replied cheerfully while directing another group toward safety. Welcome aboard our disaster. They managed to successfully extract 600 refugees before absolute disaster struck hard. A massive electromagnetic storm front, far larger than anything they had encountered before, rolled toward them like a giant purple tidal wave of destruction. We need to disconnect immediately. Thomas shouted desperately over the comm, that storm will tear both ships completely apart. We still have 300 people trapped on the Dawn. Emma protested loudly. If we stay connected, everyone dies. James made his decision in a single heartbeat. Secure all the refugees we have. Grace, break us away from the Dawn but keep us close. We are not leaving 300 people behind to die. Captain, the storm will. I know exactly what that storm will do, James interrupted sharply. But we are not abandoning 300 souls. Figure it out. That is an order. What followed next would be studied in flight academies for generations as either brilliant or completely insane. The Spirit detached quickly from the Dawn and repositioned itself directly between the colony ship and the incoming storm. Using their severely overtaxed engines, they generated a deflector field. It was not regulation. It was not safe. It was probably impossible by every standard of known physics. But it diverted just enough of the storm's fury to keep the Dawn from being completely obliterated. Hull integrity at 15%. Jack called out in alarm. Reactor temperature critical. Thomas added desperately. There are children on that ship, Emma said quietly to nobody in particular. Grace's hands moved across her console in patterns she had never learned in any academy or training program. Give me 2 more minutes. Just 2. They did not have 2 minutes. The storm hit them with full devastating force. Back on Theta 9, the telemetry feeds went completely haywire. Alien observers gasped audibly as the Spirit signal signatures nearly disappeared beneath overwhelming interference. They are gone, someone whispered in horror. No, Veth said firmly, pointing at a screen. Look there. The Spirit emerged from the storm like a phoenix rising from flames. It was battered beyond recognition, bleeding atmosphere from multiple breaches, one entire engine completely dead, hull plates falling away into space. But it was still flying. Still moving forward. And beside it, protected in its wake, the peaceful Dawn had survived. They actually did it. Rish pulsed a color that might have been pure awe. They really did it. Aboard the Spirit, alarms had given up trying to track all the system failures. Emma coordinated the final extraction while Grace nursed the dying ship forward, meter by agonizing meter. The last refugee, a tiny Kayatoth juvenile no more than 6 cycles old, crossed the umbilical connection just as it finally failed completely. Thomas sealed the airlock with his own burned hands, then slumped against the wall in total exhaustion. Everyone is aboard, Emma reported softly. Then let us get out of this hell, James said. The journey back through the Charybdis Nebula took 4 endless hours. 4 hours of jury-rigged systems holding together through nothing but duct tape, desperate prayer, and Thomas's increasingly creative interpretations of physics laws. They limped into Theta 9's docking bay on emergency power alone, still venting atmosphere, reactor flickering like a dying star. The docking bay was absolutely packed. Every species, every delegate, every single being on the station had come to witness their return. As the airlocks opened and refugees streamed out, all 900 of them alive and safe, the crowd erupted. Not in applause exactly, but in each species' own expression of overwhelming relief and gratitude. Captain Norrell approached James as medical teams attended to the exhausted refugees. You saved them all. Even when that storm came, even when you should have fled to save yourselves, you stayed and protected us. We do not leave people behind, James replied simply. It is not the human way of doing things. Veth descended from the observation deck, flanked by the full council. The Kayatoth's scales had shifted to a color James had never seen before. Captain Mitchell, Veth began formally. Your ship should be impounded. Your crew should face serious charges for dozens of violations. By every standard of galactic law, you should be grounded permanently and never fly again. James straightened despite exhaustion threatening to pull him down. Yes, sir. However, Veth continued, you accomplished what no other vessel in this entire sector could have done. You saved 900 lives in conditions that would have destroyed any properly maintained ship in our fleet. Toril stepped forward, all four arms gesturing at the broken spirit behind them. We must acknowledge an uncomfortable truth today. Your recklessness is actually hyperadaptability. Your violations are really innovations. Your dangerous practices are survival skills that we completely lack. Our species plan for everything to go right, Rish added, pulsing a thoughtful blue. You plan for everything to go wrong. In a universe as chaotic as ours, perhaps your approach has real merit. Veth raised his voice so everyone could hear clearly. This council hereby creates a new official designation, emergency response vessels. These ships will be held to alternative standards. They will be called upon when regulations fail, when safety becomes suicide, when the impossible must be achieved. You are making us legal? Emma asked in genuine surprise. We are making you necessary, Veth corrected. Though all such vessels must display appropriate warnings at every civilized station. Warnings? Thomas asked tiredly. Toril displayed a holographic sign that read, Human Standard Vessel, board at own risk. Safety protocols optional. Survival not guaranteed. The human crew looked at each other for a long moment, then burst out laughing despite their exhaustion. That is absolutely perfect, James said with a genuine smile. We will take 20 of those signs. 3 weeks later, the indomitable Spirit departed Theta 9 after extensive repairs. Though extensive meant they had replaced parts that were actively on fire and upgraded their duct tape to a slightly stronger variety. On the bridge, James sat in his captain's chair with his coffee mug in hand, watching stars stretch past as they accelerated to speeds that still made traffic controllers very nervous. Captain, Grace said from navigation, we have received 6 new contract offers. All of them specifically request human standard transport through various hazard zones. Our reputation precedes us now, Emma observed with a satisfied smile. Lucky, James called to the AI. What is our current ship status? All systems are functioning at 97% of human acceptable parameters, Lucky replied. I have logged 412 new safety warnings. I assume you will be ignoring all of them as usual. Only the unreasonable ones, Thomas said from engineering. You consider all of them unreasonable. Exactly right. James took a long sip of coffee and grinned widely. Set course for the Antares run. Let us see if we can break our own speed record this time. As the indomitable Spirit vanished into the black, stations along its route updated their warning displays. Some species saw it and refused to hire human vessels. Others, the desperate ones who needed the impossible, saw it and knew exactly who to call. Because sometimes the galaxy did not need safe. Sometimes it needed humans.